Hey, so I am Demon Dev, and I thought I would talk a little bit about the process that I've been going through the past 5 years working on Double Demons and basically what I see happening for the project. So it's a virtual reality dating sim set in the modern world, but also in the spirit world. You kind of live a double life, half and half. So what I'm working towards right now is an early access release where the game will come out sometime late 2022 with the idea that you'll be able to wake up, go to school, talk to people on the way to school, at school, on the way home, and then also learn about the spirit world and how to get there and be able to team up with people within your faction to go fight things and develop relationships during that time and uh, interact with the spirit world in a couple different ways. The main one being building these kind of stone golem familiar pets as well. So all of that will be in there, and then the core being the conversation system. So choosing how to express yourself and what you want to say as two choices for every dialogue exchange is going to be the heart of it. So I'm really excited about that. I've been working almost purely on the conversation system for the past 5 years, and I think I've really nailed what will make it work and what will make it fun and strategic. So right now, I'm mostly in the writing process. I'm writing a lot, and then I'm also working with someone else who's going to be writing a lot. They've wrote some stuff, much more to come. And what I'm hoping is alongside the release of Double Demons on Steam as like an early access game project, there will also be Electra Engine, which is the Unity add-on tool that I have, which will allow anyone to do two things. One, kind of open up the dialogue branching trees, all of the data that goes into the conversation system in Double Demons, and see what's going on. And then two, add or contribute. So this will be the first time, I think, maybe with any game and story and conversation system where I'll be encouraging people to create their own conversations for the game and exposing that tool so people can add those very easily and not just add them, but be able to sell them on a marketplace to other people and receive the lion's share of that revenue. So I'm really excited about that system too. I've been excited about my ideas for how conversation could work, how it could be skill based dialogue selection and allow for the room for players to express themselves and not just react to what they hope the AI will want them to say. Although I do think that's an important component that very much mirrors real life. So there'll be two different modes that you can submit or create conversations for. There'll be Canon Plus, where basically just kind of accepting the honor system vow of extending and deepening or editing these characters to be in line with who you think they are when you play through the game. Basically staying in this universe. And then there'll also be like a beyond, so you can use these characters or new characters once I allow you to add in your own characters to do any story similar to the game or not similar, but using the same assets as well. So I'm really excited about both of those systems and what the community can come up when I deliver those tools. Again, ideally alongside the early access release, and I think that will be a really fun time and allow me to get a lot of feedback from people because these systems are so experimental and try to balance them as well as they can be and allow that to be a fun progression. One of the big challenges is knowing what the right amount of pacing is. You've got a bond friendship relationship that starts at a 5 out of 10, pretty neutral when you start to meet them in a attraction or respect value that starts at a 0 out of 10. By the end of a conversation, should it be possible to raise these values a point, a half a point, or even less than that? How long should the scaling of the relationships, how many conversations and what kind of length of conversations build the relationship, how much, and what the percentage of options should be that move things in one way or another are a lot of tricky levers that I'm messing with right now as some of the like first several conversations become playable in the game. So I'll be looking for help when I launch the early access to see what people think and how that's working for them. I'm really excited. I think that it represents maybe even a new genre in games to have skill based dialogue selection. I really do believe that up until now, any dialogue choice has been presented without enough clear feedback, both anticipating, what am I choosing in the first place, and also on the tail end, knowing whether that mattered immediately. When the AI responds, you should know whether you chose, in a sense, the right or wrong option, and to see, how close the numbers were when you're, fighting in League of Legends and it's a one-on-one, and both of you are really low. You get so much information. You're seeing your health bars, tick down, tick down, tick down. And then when one of you inevitably dies, sometimes both at the same time, you get to see how close it was. Like, oh, if I had only gotten one more attack in, if I had used this spell and not missed it, exactly, how close things were, and maybe there's some uncertainty on, how well, you know, one extra attack would have gone, but you can build that awareness over time. And that's exactly the kind of thing that will be possible in this system. You'll get a sense for how all these different emotions play with different characters that you talk to. And you will develop a personal, way of dealing with each character depending on what you want to get out of the relationship, or maybe what you just want to get out of being, yourself in the relationship. So maybe you'll just always choose every funny option that pops up, every crude option that pops up. And I think that's great. I think that people should be allowed to present consistent personalities for themselves as players and see what happens and have the game truly respect that in a way that I think has never been done before. I think in the past with dialogue selection, you have a predetermined attachment of those options. If you say, choose A option or A, nah, if you choose option A or option B, that's already tied to the character liking or disliking that. Now, I think that character's personality should be respected. Maybe they'll always like or dislike those options, but in the context of the relationship, there should be a possibility for it to go two ways. If your favorite friend in the world, calls you a loser, that's going to be a completely different effect than, some random person that you don't like very much. And you'll have a completely different reaction. And that kind of subtlety and dynamic response to who the player is and has been, I think matters a lot. And I think that will be really, really fun. So, yeah. So, sometime in 2022, I'm hoping to put out both these things, the game probably playable for about a week or two in game time, although I'll allow the game to keep running, but I don't know how much conversation content I will have prepared for that point. But that's part of the fun of the dialogue creation tool. People can jump in and add their own or mess with the existing ones. I think will be really, really fun too. The system is built in such a way that it allows for infinitely many options in two dimensions, both in the meaning direction. So, like, think of saying yes, no, or maybe, or, any combination of that. And in certain situations, there's no limit to the type of responses or, initiated topics that you could come up with. The system is built in such a way that you can have as many as you want of that, and you can have as many expressions as you want too. Now, expressions are technically limited in their effectiveness, on the AI by the 12 different emotion types. Think mean to friendly, serious to funny, clean to crude, things like that. And there's two damage types, so it's not just 12 emotions that you could possibly have an option. It's actually 144. Actually, no, it's 169 because you can have contradictory emotions. So any of the 12 match with any of the 12. And then you can also have one emotion type. So think just mean as the primary emotion or as only the secondary emotion, secondary just being half or regular damage, and primary being double damage. So you get all sorts of interesting mixtures where you can kind of add in just a little bit of something or lean into it a lot. But what I mean by, infinitely many options, so if all of the community, or not all, but enough people that cared and wanted to write in their own conversation options, both in the expression or the meaning aspect of things, if they wanted to, they could generate hundreds or thousands of conversation options for a single dialogue choice. Maybe it's a very important moment where there's been some conflict. Maybe you've done something to hurt the other character, or they've done something to hurt you. There's, a lot of complex dynamics in this game that I'm really excited for people to experience as I have envisioned, but also to take into, other branches and other possibilities. But so you have these conflicts where maybe a character has done something to wrong the player and you're trying to express that. And there's this possibility where many people could contribute and add potentially hundreds of dialogue options. So you might be thinking, okay, what does that mean? What are you going to do with hundreds of dialogue options? Are people really going to read through hundreds of dialogue options? And are you really going to support significant branching within those dialogue options? Well, first off, there's some grouping. So you could have 100 dialogue options, certainly only on the expression. So different ways of expressing the same idea. Maybe there's only like two or three different things you could say somewhere when you're dealing with the conflict. One thing could be about um, pushing blame and responsibility on the other person, and maybe in a good way or a bad way. Another thing could be, giving them credit, the benefit of the doubt, saying that it's understandable they would have acted that way. You have those two ideas. You could express them in 100 different ways, and all of those could be contained within only a couple different AI responses, because those emotions that the AI character is experiencing, they as a person only represent one person, with their whole variety is just based on the player's differences of what they're saying. So the AI character may truly only be responding in a slightly negative, slightly positive, more positive, more negative, as many options as you want, but you could say significantly less than the number of options that players could have. But okay, so you've got hundreds of player options. What does that mean? Well, the kind of the end game for the Electra system and Double Demons is I want to so aggressively support this kind of chaotic chain reaction levels of expansions, that there's actually going to be something called mindsets in the game. And what mindsets will do is allow you to organize and sort your dialogue options according to some sort of metric. So imagine if your mindset was you just wanted to be mean, you're feeling vengeful, and so you want to see of all the possible thoughts and things you could say, you want to see all the ones that are the meanest. So maybe mean serious, or just mean. I can't remember the word that describes that, but you can look for those damage types. And so if the community has made hundreds or thousands of dialogue options for an important point of conflict in the story, you could, you could read all these one by one, but you could also sort them by different ways of approaching thinking. And I think this represents real life too, people who truly are considering many, many different aspects of how they could approach very difficult topics. So you could have a mindset that's vengeful. You could have one that's looking for healing. Maybe it's looking for a conflict resolution tone where you're compromising. Maybe it's a combination of mean and friendly, or a combination of serious and funny, like, like that really hurt me. um Maybe you spin it into a joke with, like, which you seem to do a lot. It's still kind of mean, but it kind of has a comic beat to it. So there's so much you can do within that system. And so you can apply a mindset, and I think the way that it will work in the game is that by training with experts, there'll be experts in all sorts of different mindsets. There's, like the obvious one would be a player mindset. So orienting all your thinking about what the girl wants to hear and would probably be attracted to. It's not an end all be all. The conversation system is so complicated that even with perfect mathematical systems, there's a writer's element too. So you have to decide in more than one dimension, but within the dimension of expression, what expression she'll be most attracted to. If you are using a player mindset, maybe you study with a love guru or someone is just wise and worldly about those sorts of things, you can begin to organize all your dialogue options according to that. Now, that may be at the cost of your friendship. So maybe you're maximizing the attraction, but your friendship is struggling. So maybe she finds you attractive, but she kind of hates your guts at the same time. And you may be having a difficult time getting her to be around you or hang out with you, even if she finds you attractive. So you can find yourself in those sorts of complex situations. And I am beyond excited to see what people do with such an unlimited system like that, that not only allows people to pour in as much effort and possible combinations and options, but the system is ready to handle, I think, those options, and it's ready to make them approachable for any level of player with the mindset system, but also treat them respectfully and fairly. These options have properties that the game will calculate. So, depending on what kind of emotions you're expressing, the AI will go through those dynamically, and she doesn't know ahead of time how she's going to feel. Maybe there is a way to get across something that, in a very serious and mean way that she can appreciate. And I think people will find those ways. And if they don't, then maybe that takes the conversation in a more difficult direction that exposes some part of the AI's character's personality that is a breaking point or a deal breaker. That's what I'm looking for, and that's really exciting too. Anyways, I hope you'll keep up to date with Demon Dev kind of devlog stuff, and I'm excited to continue talking about the ways that this system can handle infinite, user generated content and make that approachable for even relatively casual players. Thanks. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you again soon.